There's a lot that goes into professional prize fighting. Years of hard work and dedication, physical and mental turmoil, the agony of defeat, and the thrill of victory. However, there's a reason why it's called prize fighting. At the end of the bout, no matter what, there's a purse waiting for you. Outside of getting revenge on your grade school bully, you'd be hard-pressed to find people crazy enough to willfully risk getting punched in the face on live television without a fat sack of cash waiting for them at the end of it all. Of course, the road to millions through fighting isn't a viable path for most people who test the waters in prize fighting. The Money Mayweathers and Conor McGregors of the combat sport world are few and far between. And while fighting on the main card of a big event is sure to get you a decent payday, you're going to have to suffer from some measly paydays on the way to earning that chance in the spotlight. It may be unusual for a main event fighter to make less than $500K, but those no-names on the undercard are often putting everything on the line for $16K. For fans of MMA, fighter salaries have been a controversial topic, especially when it comes to the UFC. Many feel that the athletes are underpaid and that the promotion takes advantage of the people in the lower ranks of the organization. However, the biggest stars of the sport bring in the big bucks. Fighter pay for the lower-ranking guys may be controversial in its own right, but UFC superstar Jon Jones isn't hurting for cheddar. Though it has to be said, he is certainly controversial. From run-ins with Johnny Law to problems with the USADA, Jon Jones has certainly had more than his fair share of dark clouds over his otherwise illustrious MMA career. Before Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor came onto the scene, Jon Jones was the biggest star in the UFC. He's been a staple as the kingpin of the light heavyweight division for over 10 years, debuting in 2008. Aside from a disqualification against Matt Hammil and a no decision against Daniel Cormier, he's never lost a fight. Well, when you win that much, you get paid. Despite his successes in the octagon and the great earnings that go along with it, he did express a desire to earn more than he already had. After his knockout turn no decision against Daniel Cormier at UFC 214, Jones cited being inspired by Conor McGregor, a true pioneer in making bank in MMA, and called out the biggest name that was available to him, Brock Lesnar. Of course, after popping hot with the picograms in the pool, that fight never came to fruition. Still, Jon Jones certainly lives the life of someone with heavy hands and an even heavier wallet. A known party animal with a penchant for getting into trouble right when things seem to be going good for him, Jones certainly has the larger-than-life persona befitting one of the greatest mixed martial artists to ever live. In today's video, we're going to take an in-depth look at how Jon Jones spends his millions. As of December 2020, Jon Jones has an estimated net worth of $10 million. The 33-year-old Albuquerque resident has made a staggering $7,230,000 in disclosed fight purses throughout his UFC career. But, as the diehards will tell you, that doesn't include things like PPV points. Because of the undisclosed figures, his earnings from his UFC bouts are undoubtedly much greater than the $7.23 million number. Like most professional athletes, Jones also has endorsements, including deals with Nike, Reebok, Muscle Tech, GAT Sports, K-Swiss, and others. Before we get into the juicy stuff, it's only fair to point out that Jones is a family man with a long history of charity work. He lives in a multi-bedroom mini-mansion in Albuquerque with his wife and 3 daughters. He has raised money for charity, most notably the Pediatric Cancer Foundation, and often volunteers in his community. In fact, during protests in the wake of George Floyd's murder, a video surfaced of Jones confronting vandals who were spray painting and destroying property in his New Mexico neighborhood. Of course, doing nice things isn't the only thing he does with all that dough. Anyone familiar with Jones's story knows that he has an affinity for nice cars. Nice cars that sometimes land him in hot water. Back in 2012, Jones wrecked his Bentley by driving into a pole. He fled the scene of the crime, likely to escape any DUI charges. His trouble with fancy cars doesn't end there though, as he was infamously involved with a hit and run in 2015. Lucky for Jones, his SUV was rented. Unlucky for Jones, the accident left a pregnant woman injured. What's worse, Jones fled the scene of the crime yet again. You'd think the vehicular lesson might have been learned, but just this year, Jones was arrested for a DWI after doing donuts in his Camaro and firing off guns into the New Mexican night sky. Speaking of guns, Jones is a gun enthusiast and has described firearms as his only hobby. He often frequents Calibers, a popular firearms store for hobbyists near world-renowned MMA gym Jackson Winklejohn, where he trains. He is particularly fond of assault rifles, often getting custom makes that require professionally fitted barrels. His gun collection is said to have over 20 pieces, his favorite being an M4 clone rifle with a unique scope. A fun fact some fans may not know, Jon has two brothers, both of whom played for the NFL. So, as a family of wealthy athletes, there is of course a lot of healthy competition when it comes to who's earning the big bucks. Well, maybe healthy isn't the right word, but Jones likes to compete with his brothers, Arthur and Chandler, over who can pimp out their rides the best. It's not enough to just get luxury cars. Jones likes to get them fitted with custom headlights, decked out tires, flashy grills, TVs in the headrests, and all other kinds of gadgets, all in an attempt to one-up his brothers. Jones is such a fan of cars that he even once accepted a relatively low payment of $10,000 to do an autograph signing at SEMA, or Specialty Equipment Market Association, the largest vehicle enthusiast gathering in the world. When Jones's manager found out that $10K was all he was getting, he was shocked, but Jones was just happy to be there, getting the scoop on how to trick out his ride in ways his brothers would get jealous of. Jones has certainly lived up to his reputation as a wild man. While he's calm and collected inside the cage, he is known to frequent clubs, bars, and casinos in his free time. While it's easy to understand the urge to go out and party, especially when you're sitting on millions in the bank, fans and those around Jones are sometimes left wondering how things might be better if he lived a more discreet lifestyle. Currently, Jones has relinquished his light heavyweight title. For a while, it seemed like his days in the UFC were over, and that he was either going to venture into another business or perhaps another promotion. However, it now seems like the years of teasing a move up to heavyweight are coming to fruition, which only means one thing: more money for Mr. Jones. What do you guys think of how Jones spends his millions? Are you excited to see a move up to heavyweight? How do you think he'd fare in a bout against Stipe Miocic? Is Jones the greatest of all time? Or are the controversies involving steroids and criminal extracurriculars a no-go for you? One thing's for certain, it'll be the biggest payday of his career. Hopefully, though, he won't crash his luxury vehicle into an Olympic swimming pool filled with gas station dick pills.